Welcome to CareerSpeak, a podcast dedicated to telling the stories of student success. On this edition, we'll be talking with Alex Tholl, an industrial design senior at Thomas Jefferson University and co-founder of Dive Designs. I am your host, Patrick Ryan, and this is recorded on the East Falls campus of Thomas Jefferson University. You are listening to CareerSpeak. So I want to thank you for coming in, Alex. Pleasure for you to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Ryan. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
So this podcast is all about student success, student careers, and sort of launching into those. And since being at Jefferson, I have found that a lot of students are not waiting to graduate. They are getting right into it, which is super exciting because that was not me when I was in college. So it's so exciting to see people starting companies while they're in school, and just doing a lot of cool things. So if you can just sort of introduce yourself to the audience, kind of a little bit about yourself, and we'll get started with sort of your 3 words to success.
Sure. So as Ryan said, Alex Tholl. I'm from northern New Jersey, Morristown, 25. And I've had a pretty awesome ride up to this point, graduating in May. Very excited to say the least. And yes, thanks for bringing up Dive Design. We're super excited for our move up to New York and continuing that process.
Awesome. So moving along here, this podcast is all about career success. You have had success. And so I've asked you to put it together in 3 words for me.
Yes.
3 words.
Yes.
I'm sure that was hard to do, but you've come up with some things here. So, what is one skill or one thought process or one word that you think has really resonated with you as being a part of that kind of professional development, career success?
I think what's great about these 3 words, just before we get into it, is the fact that I can reflect on it all now. Now that I'm 25 and I've had this experience through college, I can really look back and tell you that I'm very confident that the first word is transparency. And transparency comes from a long line of making mistakes. And a big one for me when I was in 6th grade, this is probably the most notable, is I had spoken to what I thought was a friend behind another person's back, just asking a simple question, not bad-mouthing or anything like that. And unfortunately, that person who I thought was a friend went to the person that I had been speaking about and had twisted my words. And unfortunately, that came back around to get me. And that's happened, on a few occasions before that. And, whether it was administration or it was the student coming back, it was a problem. And it really didn't resonate with me until I realized that I needed to just ask those questions to the person so I wouldn't be getting in trouble in the long run, right? So if I could learn to tailor those questions to the person and just ask them politely, I was better off than having it get the words twisted, and then ended up, having a bigger problem.
It's funny to me that this was something that happened to you around 6th grade, because I feel like this is what you've just described is like the high school scenario, right? Like that's what you've described. So essentially 3 years prior.
Oh, it happened in high school too.
Yeah, well, right. But it seems to me that this actually had more of an effect on you than maybe the average person. Would you say that you felt like you kind of wised up to that a little bit quicker than people around you, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I would. I was always a very outgoing person, and as I mentioned, that would get me into trouble sometimes. So yeah, I did wise up to that quickly. Yeah, very quickly.
And so how has that particular experience sort of helped you in your professional development? So obviously going directly to people is always a great way to go about things, but putting it in a professional context, what does that look like?
Yeah, I think even looking at college, even looking at my past years in college, it was really important, especially in the design community, to be very honest about somebody else's design. And as a designer, you need to be able to take criticism. And you have to learn how to give that criticism. You have to learn how to be polite about it. You have to learn how to be structured with it. And that's really where I was able to that's where I was able to really hone in on that transparency and perfect that transparency. And for me, that was really pivotal because I wasn't great at that. I wasn't really good at being transparent with other people. I was doing it the wrong way. And design really helped me hone in on those skills on how to properly critique somebody and also be transparent with them at the same time. So moving into, my other ventures or even my daily life, I now understand the proper etiquette to confronting people about things and giving them some advice or being honest with a question that they asked the most possible way. it wasn't about, lying to their faces just to make them feel good. It was about being honest with them, giving those honest criticisms so they know where to improve. And also for me too, it's been a constant learning process that will always be throughout my lifetime is perfecting that criticism and perfecting that transparency.
So it sounds like transparency to you is sort of a higher level of communication,
It is.
professional communication. That's
It
sort
is.
of the point you're trying to make here.
Yes, absolutely.
So going further with that, talking about other experiences where you feel like this has been helpful for you. So you talked about in design. What about starting with your co-founder, starting this company? Do you feel like this also helped you do that?
Oh, absolutely. And Adam Hecht would agree with this too, is that if you're transparent with the people who are working for you, and you're transparent with your clients, everything just flows much better. There's no hidden secrets. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's understanding of what the goals are and what needs to get done. And the process just moves along a lot smoother than if you're not telling your employees something that your client told you, or that you're telling your employees something that the client didn't tell you. Whatever the scenario is, it just proves to be a better method to be just transparent along that entire line. Now, when it comes to price, that's a whole different thing. Some things need to be confidential, some information needs to be confidential. But when we're talking about deliverables, it's crucial that you're transparent across the line to make sure that everything moves smoothly.
So let's take that example and let's move it to the design studio here at Jefferson, or for an ID
Sure.
student or a graphic designer. When you think about that in the studio, you kind of talked about critiques or being honest about a design. Do you feel like that's a missed opportunity sometimes? Do you feel like some people don't take critiques and things like that seriously? They could take them more seriously, become a better designer?
I think it's on both ends. I think it's giving the criticism and also receiving it. And absolutely. And unfortunately, it's hard to tell someone you're terrible at receiving criticism or you're terrible at giving criticism. It's always been a very touchy subject with anything, any profession, and especially design, because we go through so many iterations of a process. I think it's really important for people to kind of pull their pride back and just listen and just be understanding and observant of what people have to say. Because sometimes their comments are wrong and their comments aren't valid, but the fact that you were able to just take it and listen to it and maybe understand and take some key points from it is really what matters. In the same light, being able to properly give that criticism, being honest but being gentle and polite about it, and knowing what's right and what's wrong when communicating with someone is also extremely important, because you're treading a fine line there, and you want to make sure what you're giving that person is very valid and very relevant.
It sounds to me like you're almost kind of going through a process of curating your communication style and curating your speech, because you not only want to be transparent, but you also want it to be accurate and reflect exactly the thought
Correct.
process that
Yes.
you're trying to make. And so I can see where that would be helpful in design, because then you can actually get a clear picture of, let's say, what exactly are you talking about? What would you like me to do?
Yeah, what are the deliverables? What are you trying to present to people? Right, absolutely.
That's awesome. So transparency has kind of morphed here. So when you presented this before we recorded, I didn't know where it was going to go, but now this kind of makes sense to me in the idea that really what you're talking about is a higher level, even a more honest level of communication, more clear in all of that, but also, again, more just really getting at the most accurate version of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Spot on.
All right. So transparency is number one.
Number one.
Number one. And so now we are moving on to success word number two. I don't know, we're not going to call it that, but the next word or phrase that you feel has really led to your success.
So number two is balance, and balance is really important. And we talked about this before we started this podcast, and really how balance has played such a pivotal part in my life. But I didn't take such a traditional route getting into college, as you had mentioned. I left high school with a 2.2 GPA, and I really didn't have an end in sight. I was really curious whether I was even worthy of going to community college at that point. And I had a really great background with my parents, and they were very committed to me and helping me move along in life, and they've been such a great support group. So they said, why don't you give community college a shot? You at least deserve to try that. And I wasn't reluctant. I really did want to give it a shot. I want to prove to myself that I could do this and that I could improve upon myself. And high school was tough for me. Middle school was tough for me. I just didn't feel like I fit in very well. And whether that was just because I was a little obnoxious or a little loud, whatever the scenarios were, or I wasn't such a great student because of a learning disability, whatever that had been, I moved on to community college, and I made a pact to myself that I was going to really fix those things, and I was going to learn how to work on those things. And one of the first things I did was I went and got tested, and I found out that I had a learning disability when it came to understanding math problems and those types of equations, and I just need a little more time with it. And that was huge for me, because when I started taking those math courses that I needed, the remedial and the regular courses to move into another college, I started getting it. And my teachers took the time, and I went after class, and I started meeting with them. And it was really, it was one of those pivotal moments where I was like, okay, this is what I needed to do to better understand that. Why didn't I do that in high school? Why didn't I just suck up my pride, not act like I was cool, and just get the help I needed? And I don't regret that. I have no regrets with that, and I'm super grateful that I did that. But it moves into a bunch of other things that I find with balance too. And that was a ski club in community college. I really wanted to be part of ski club. I've been snowboarding for 12 years now, and I really wanted to do that. But as I started, I wasn't confident that I could miss a moment of class, and that if I did, I would be losing out on a ton of information. I wouldn't be able to pass the next test. I was running through all these negative thoughts in my head, and it was terrible, and I missed out on a lot of these great opportunities. So it wasn't until my second year that I started developing those time management skills that enabled me to be able to do ski club and enabled me to be able to get my work done on time. And since I graduated community college, I haven't missed one class at Philadelphia University, Thomas Jefferson University. And I never missed one because of sickness, and if I did miss one, it was because of a field trip to learn more. And I'm really proud of that. And whether that's a little bit of me being a nut or just not wanting to waste my money, since school is so expensive. So that's really where balance comes in with me, and really understanding time management and understanding what needs to come first and what is important in my life and where I need to be.
So I'm going to ask a couple of follow-up questions to that, because I think that this is a good point. Time management is obviously a pretty crucial skill. I think most people use that word almost as a buzz term at this point.
Oh, they do.
I don't even know if I really know what it means. So let's talk about that. At what point do you feel like you developed those skills? How did you develop them?
Yeah, great question.
When did you decide, wait a second, I can do two things, I can do three things?
Right.
When did you realize, and how did that start to make sense?
Yeah, so I actually owe a lot to my mom. She went through a lot of the struggles that I went through as a child, and she turned out pretty successful. So I always had this little bit of motivation in the back of me, knowing that if she could do it and she went through what I did, that I could certainly do it. I hadn't really related to other students that had the issues that I had, so she was, a big rock for me. But she said, "Let's get you some time management counseling." And at the same time, I didn't know what that was. I had no idea. And so I started meeting with this gentleman named Barry, and we did it over Skype, and we did it once a week, and I did it for 2 years. And every week we would go over time management skills, and it wasn't a buzzword at the time. It was a real thing that I needed to learn, and boy, I had no concept of time management before that, and it explains so much. And now they offer free services for time management. There's a bunch of online programs on how to perfect your skills, getting planners. I'm a very visual person, so I have a physical planner, and that's what really works for me. But that time management started around the beginning of community college and starting those classes. So I stopped with the counseling my second year in the community college, and that's really was a huge, huge factor in my success.
Being a little bit more specific, and without giving any of Barry's proprietary information, what would go on? So, I mean, was this person simply helping you plan a week, a month, a day?
Yeah.
Was there coping mechanisms or skills that were being delivered, things like that? Could you give an example of those?
Yeah, and a lot of it isn't really proprietary. As much as I wanted to believe it wasn't. And you're spot on that Barry would help me plan my life down to the time of a day, into the hours of a day. And in the beginning, I was very reluctant about this because I was like, no, I just know the things I have to do, and I'll get to them eventually, right? Like a lot of people. And I was like, no, this has been working for me. And he goes, has it been working for you? And I was like, well, I guess it hasn't been working for me, right? And it kind of took him to talk back to me to realize that it wasn't. And really what we did is we took this planner that he recommends to a lot of his clients, and it's called the Planner Pad. And I suggest that everyone listening to this looks it up. plannerpad.com. And basically what it does is it funnels your life down from everything that you have to do into a week, into a day, and into a time in that order. And it is just a phenomenal way of keeping track of everything that you have to do, when it's due, and maybe the courses that you need to, or the steps you need to take to complete it. Now, that being said, Barry also helped me realize that I needed to take breaks. I was someone who couldn't look at something for too long without taking a break or getting flustered and overwhelmed. And I think a lot of people need to realize that taking breaks is okay. If you're scheduling those breaks into your day and you're knowing when to take those breaks, then it's okay. And you still have enough time to do the other things that you've got planned out. Just make sure you're trying to really stick to that timeline. So yeah, there were a lot of like obvious tools that I didn't realize.
To be clear, do you have everything? Is there anything spontaneous happening in Alex's life?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And really what this planner pad comes down to is scholarly things or work things. It's not necessarily the spontaneous things in your life. Like if your friends say, oh, let's go out to the bar Friday night, go to the bar. You'll be able to reorganize that thing, but don't let it get too out of hand. You know, life is life and things are going to come up and you need to be able to plan around them. Just make sure that you're keeping to a lot of your goals. I mean, I run off like there's no tomorrow. I have ADHD, and when I was a kid, I was on tons of meds for it, and I haven't been for 7 years now, and it was all about that time management. And it's really important that you know that you have the time to accomplish what needs to be done in full to the best of your ability and still have a life. Does that clear?
I think that is helpful, and I think that these are tools that you're going to talk about a little bit more, but I would love to get some specific examples, and this is something I'm going to ask now, because do you feel like initially the time management thing was anything to do with the level of confidence that you had going into school as the ability of like, I can't take on too much? Or was it more focused on, I just can't miss class?
Well, no, it was both. It was both. It was realizing that I had no time to do anything but schoolwork, which was a complete lie. And I had fooled myself into believing that. And the other part was I wasn't giving myself enough to just be who I was. I wasn't giving myself enough time to just do the things I needed to do to enjoy life. And that's where that really plays into having that balance that we've been talking about.
So now what about saying no? I haven't heard you say that, I don't think, yet today on this podcast, but what about saying no? Is it harder to do that now that you have these skills, or do you feel like that's a necessity for time management, is being able to tell people I am too thin, I gotta say no?
So easy now to say no, and I love to help people. I mean, I'll pull over on the side of the road to help somebody push their car over or get down to a gas station, whatever it is. You know, that's the type of person I am, but it's become a lot easier to say no, knowing that I have a schedule that I need to stick to, but also have a life outside of that schedule. It's become easier to say no. Now, in the same light, that doesn't mean that you should say no to everyone or anything. That means that, yeah, I've got a few extra minutes. Let me just say yes, and I'll help this person out with a small project. If you know that you can complete it in time and you know it'll bring you some joy and them joy or whatever, then do it. But, yeah, no is really important for a lot of people to learn, and it took me a very long time, probably up until the end of community college. I didn't really know how to say no. And that'll help you lose some time. Don't worry.
So balance is the second word. So transparency, yes, which we have now come to realize is sort of a higher level of communication, a more authentic kind of communication. Balance, kind of reorganizing, a little bit of time management. Now we're moving in now to your third word. So transparency, balance. Talk to us about this last word you chose.
Drive. Drive is my last word, and it is something that took a lot of time to hone in on. And I've got a few great experiences that I can certainly talk about that really helped me realize what my drive was and what drive is to me. And when I was in high school, I became a part-time mechanic. We had a family friend who had worked on all of our cars. He had a small shop and a few people working for him, and he was one of the most organized people I ever met. And that's a lot to say coming from a mechanic, you know, who's got hundreds of parts around the shop and everything, but extremely organized guy. And when I started there, I was just doing oil changes. I was doing small brake jobs, little things that, you know, he knew I could handle, and I had some experience working on my own car doing. And Tom was an amazing mentor to me. That's really what he was. He was a mentor, and I always watched him and how he interacted with clients. And that's another stepping stone for me, was watching how he interacted with clients that were happy, were unhappy, needed work done. There was a lot of different situations in being a shop owner and dealing with clients that you can really take away from. And I'll never regret doing that. You know, not just learning the skills to work on my car, but also learning how he treated those clients. Additionally, as a mentor, I would make mistakes, or as him as a mentor, I would make mistakes. Anyone's bound to make mistakes doing a mechanic's job for the first time in their life. So he would come down. If I made a mistake, he would say, okay, I need to talk to you for a second. Let's go back over the car you were just working on. I caught something that I think you made a mistake on. And I would just be like, oh, okay. And then inside I'm internalizing it like, shit, I'm going to get fired. This is the end of the world. You know, it's all over here. I'm done. My parents are going to be upset, whatever. And it would bring me back to the car. He goes, okay, so run me through your process here. What have you done so far? And it was a different experience than what I had before, you know? And so I would start running through everything I'd done with him. And he goes, okay, right here. This is what you missed. You missed this bolt that held this carrier on, that held the belt on to the tensioner. And I know that's gibberish for a lot of different people, but a lot of components that are held on by one part. And if I missed that part, nothing else came together. And I would finagle it together thinking I had everything, but it really wasn't structurally sound. He would come in and just kind of guide me through the process of finishing that to the fullest of its ability and where it needed to be. And I took a lot away from that. And I was the type of person that was very receptive to those types of learning skills. I would listen, and my ADHD wouldn't distract me, and I wanted to learn that. So he was a really great mentor, and I still talk to him today. We're on a bit. He's retired now, so we always catch up and whatnot. So the second one is Palumbo Associates, and this is where I was a design intern. I worked for an exhibit design agency, very successful exhibit design agency, and I worked from doing the CAD work, the conceptual design, all the way to building these exhibits, refurbishing ones that came in that needed to be shipped out. I had a whole slew of jobs. It was an amazing experience, and I worked there for about 3 years. My boss, Gary, was a great guy, very, very organized, had everything in place that he needed to have in place to make sure jobs got done, he got paid, and people were happy. And the crew that he had working for him were so loyal. They'd been working for him, I think, for like 30 years. They respected him highly, and it was a really great culture to be around. But what was very interesting is that it was unlike any experience I had before, where if I made a mistake, it became a big deal. And it was almost like high school was coming back around. Like I was on the other end of things again. And let's say, I have a good example for you. Okay, so our booth came back in a small like pop-up booth with a little graphic on it that needed to be refurbed. And what we would usually do is clean it, prep it to go back out, put the shipping label on, so on. I ended up forgetting to clean one of the panels on it, and it apparently was pretty dirty. And I had put the label on it, shipped it back out, and the client called my boss. And he wasn't upset. He just said, I just want to let you know this panel didn't get cleaned. And, you know, my boss being my boss took very good care of him, didn't charge him for, you know, the delivery or anything like that. And he came out to me, or he didn't come out to me, he came out to my coworkers and had told them what had happened. And I didn't hear about it until we all sat down for lunch. We always ate together at this big table. And one of my coworkers called me out. And he goes, hey, Alex, I heard you really effed up that booth by not cleaning it. And I looked over to him, like, shocked completely that he called me out like that. And then everyone else kind of joined in, and we're like, oh, Alex forgot to clean the booth, everyone. And I had known these guys for a while now, and I realized that it wasn't them trying to make fun of me. It was them making sure that I realized the mistake that I had made. And to this day, I still remember what that mistake was and what I did wrong, and I had never made that mistake again after that. And I was never mad at them for it. It was always about building myself and just being able to take those comments, reflecting on them, and making sure I didn't make that mistake again. It was never out, you know, they were never out to like make fun of me or hurt my feelings. It was really just about the lesson.
One thing I'm noticing here about the things that you're saying is that when you are talking about working at the shop, the auto mechanic shop, it sounds to me like your mentor had a lot of these transparent, authentic communication skills that you're talking about as being kind of highly valued.
Yes.
And you kind of maybe learned that a little bit from him, it sounds like.
Well, not even that, but even at Palumbo Associates, where the guys would call me out. They wouldn't let it go unnoticed. You know, that's a different type of transparency, you know, and you're able to see the differences between the two, but huge comments.
Now, with those two experiences, you didn't hit on this directly, but I'll just ask, do you feel like those lessons learned and those experiences motivated you to be better, to be the best, to get it right? What does that look like to you? How did that play out?
I think it's like the cliche, but yeah, they did. And if anything, I took a lot away from how they taught and what their teaching styles were and how I learned and grew in those scenarios. And I brought a lot of that into my experiences at Thomas Jefferson and also into my business on how I treat my clients or how I treat the people working for my team and so much more. So yes, a lot of that did come through and is very visible today in who I am as a person and how I act towards others. So absolutely.
So let's timeline this. Go to high school. Go to community college. Transfer to Jefferson. Is that right? Or was
Yep.
there
No,
other
you're
steps
right. Yep.
involved there? Okay, so that was direct. So now you're here, senior.
I am.
All right. You had these experiences from high school, community college. You get here. You've only been here for 2 years, 3 years, maybe, 4 years. Okay, so coming from community college and design, this is what happens. You're gonna backtrack a little bit,
especially in design.
So 6 years of education, and now you've started this company. You've co-founded this company with your partner, Dive Designs.
Yeah.
And so how does all of this pack into that? How does all of that, how does the drive, how does the transparency, how does the level of authentic communication, the balance? I mean, obviously you've talked about these time management things, so it's no wonder that you're able to kind of balance school and kind of starting this company. But of course, like I said, I don't know if I even really know what time management really is. Where do you go? How did you get started? How did that start?
Yeah. Adam and I met when I started here at Thomas Jefferson. I got to skip over one of the first design courses because I had the prior experience from community college. But we had met in design, and out of luck, I had been partnered with him on a weekend-long design competition. And this was also with one of our other friends, David. And we'd done this design competition. It was a weekend-long project. We worked with a disabled student who had a device that needed to be redesigned over the course of this weekend. And we had developed this product that revolutionized the way he was reading text with his disability, alexia, which is a form of dyslexia. And he had this big machine that he would put on his desk, and it was very embarrassing in a way. It was very cumbersome and took up his whole desk. And we developed this little device that slipped over his finger and ultimately did the same exact thing that giant device was doing. And we ended up winning this award. And that's kind of what put the stepping stone for Adam and I in place. And we'd always had this past of this entrepreneurial side of us. Adam had done a lot of little trinkets that he had sold. He had built these really beautiful lamps that he had sold. I had a small landscaping company from when I was an early teenager up until I started community college. And then I got into buying and selling cars. And we both had those entrepreneurial skills that kind of moved forward with us. And as we went on, we continued to do these competitions together, and we would place in them, which was really confirming of what we were kind of going towards or didn't know it at the time. But I went off to an internship in California my sophomore year going into junior year. I was in Santa Monica, and Adam went up to an incubator in Brooklyn. So we were both doing something design-related, but something on the different end. So Adam was working on one project the entire summer to develop and potentially bring to market. And I was working for a firm that was doing invention-like products for companies that went on Shark Tank. The company I worked for, we had like 3 or 4 products that had been on Shark Tank. So it was an amazing experience, really learning how to deal with those types of clients, bringing new clients into the office, managing projects. And as an intern, I was thrown into a lot of that. Which was incredible. And we still work with Paul today out of T2, and we still work for some of the things that Adam's done, the company he worked for over in Brooklyn, 10X Beta, which is incredible. But anyway, after we came back, we were in junior year together, and we were in the same firm in our class, in our design class. And our work ethics really started to show that we were working towards the same things. We had outside freelance work we were getting overwhelmed with, and the schoolwork was really catching up to us. And, time management's only good for so many things. You start overwhelming yourself with stuff. You don't learn to say no, then it becomes a problem. And Adam and I both saw that problem. And we had always joked about, starting our own companies. That's just kind of the people who we were. We love working for people, but we really like being in charge of a team and helping lead that team. And so we kind of joked about Dive Design, and we realized in December of 2017 that we needed to do it or we're going to drown ourselves in freelance work. And Dive Design came to be. We had built a small network of people that we trusted to help us with the design project so we could, start pushing over to, and it grew from there. Over that entire year, Jefferson helped sponsor us with a space and help our company grow. And now we're sponsored by the Dremel Company. We've got a few tools from them, that laser cutter, 3D printer, that help us with our prototyping and whatnot. And we're slated to move into New York City in Manhattan in June of this year.
That was a lot of stuff.
That was a
all
lot.
at once right there.
Yeah.
We're going to back this up a really long way. So you were doing this for 2 years in college. So you started your junior year, now your senior year.
Yes.
Are any of the products that you or designs that you made in some of these competitions sort of staples or part of what you're doing with this company, or are these independent projects outside of some of the things that you had collaborated on before this?
Both. Yeah, some of the project Adam was working on in New York came through into the company. That was a project that evolved into Dive Design, which was an amazing experience. And since I have the business background, I was kind of brought on to that to help guide a lot of the technical terms and a lot of the business aspects of things that went on with that product.
This is exactly why he wanted me to mention the minor in business. This very moment is why I did that.
Pivotal, right? But anyway, so that was great. And yeah, there were a few other projects that did come into Dive Design from outside freelance experience. I had been working with a company doing aftermarket automotive parts, and that moved into Dive Design. We were doing custom shift handles and a few other shift linkage parts, which is really neat. Really cool stuff. And we have those to show today, which is really neat. But there's also a lot of projects that we've worked on that have NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that we can't show. And that's a shame, but we've had such amazing experiences. We're working with some really pivotal companies now, and we're just excited to keep going.
So tell us about the next steps. What are the next steps? You're moving to New York City. You have a couple projects lined up. Is this a company I should be looking for on the ticker pretty soon here in the stock market? I mean, what is the future hold for Alex in Dive Design? And I'll ask a few more follow-up questions before we end today.
So Adam and I really wanted to keep this company to a point where we can both continually watch it grow. And we want it to grow. We want to be able to bring on new people. We want to see the projects get bigger and larger and more impactful to a wider array of people. I don't think we want to take the company public. It's very possible that some of the projects that come out of Dive Design could go public, which would be very exciting. So we're cash flow positive. We have no debt at the moment, which is incredible. And it was all self-funded by Adam and I. And so we're very excited to move to New York City, but we're also very nervous. We're very cautious. I'm watching finances very closely. I want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for failure and that everything's going to work out the best that it can. And the best part about both of ourselves is that we're not in it really for the money. That's a great part of it. We're in it because we wanted to try something new. We wanted to see if we could prove to ourselves that we could do this and that we can grow this and we can meet some incredible people. And man, have we met some incredible, talented people along the way. It has just been such an amazing experience. And we work so hard for it. We really do. We work such as a team, Adam and I, and the entire team that we work with now too. The whole culmination of everyone's just incredible.
To give a little background for people that are not as familiar with industrial design or don't take industrial design classes, and I don't know that that's all Dive Design does. They may do other things, and you can kind of
I will
talk about that, right? Of course. What are some ideas of these projects and what you're working on? Of course, what you can share.
Yeah.
So people can get an idea of what you're working on.
So I'll give you a little background on industrial design, and a simple way to put it is it's product design. So if you look at the phone in your hand, that is a product that was done by an industrial designer and a team of engineers and so many more people. Your computer at home, your laptop, the aesthetics of that, the ergonomics, the flashlight that you hold when the lights are out, industrial design. And that's just a brief overview. And what was the second part of that? I'm sorry, I got caught up.
What projects, for example, that you can share,
with Dive Design.
Kind of show what Dive Design do? Because I realize you probably don't do all industrial design. You might do some other things as well, and so you can kind of talk to that.
Yeah, so at Dive Design, we don't just do industrial design. Like you said, we do graphic design, product design development. We do prototyping. We do patent research and development. We do algorithmic design, e-textile design. So we're really kind of on the cutting edge of these new ways to prototype that are coming out. And that's really what's awesome for us. What can I share with you guys? I told you about the shift knob design for performance brands, which is really, really neat. You'll see a lot of our stuff in Volkswagen shops, which is awesome. What are some other things I can share with you? We work with a company up in New York City. They're a new drink company called the Long Drink Company. It's a gin and juice product. We help them with a lot of their branding. which is really neat for us. I'm trying to think what else we've done. Man, what else? We work with a local inventor doing some really cool Kickstarter projects and a lot of stuff like that. And as we grow, our jobs are getting bigger. We're working with a few doctors out of Philadelphia who are developing some really cool software. I think that's as much as I can share with you. But a lot of good stuff, a lot of really cool projects to kind of move out of graduation with and move on with.
This is exciting, and we're happy to, talk to you today about your success. Of course, I love hearing about the different words that other people sort of associate with their success and their professional development. So again, to recap, transparency, balance, and drive are the three words that Alex has selected. So looking back, thinking about the college student that you once were, thinking about the lessons that you've learned and the things that you felt have fueled your success, what do you say to the student that was in your position, struggling to get out of high school, maybe lacking some level of direction, but not drive per se, right? Just kind of floundering along, if you will. What do you say to that college student as well as the ambitious college student? How do you make the most of these years? How do you find their own success?
There are thousands and thousands of options for every single person, and nobody will take the exact same course as somebody else. The path that I took was very unconventional, as we talked about. Going from high school, not doing great, to community college, getting the disability services to help me succeed, graduating with a 3.8, coming to Thomas Jefferson, and starting dive design. So I think the advice that I can give to anyone is just get yourself out there, meet new people, go to events, realize that there's so many opportunities in all these different places, New York, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, anywhere. There's just a plethora of opportunities. So I would just urge everyone to just get out there and find out really what sparks their interest. Don't go into a field that doesn't interest you, and don't go into a field just because it makes money, because odds are you won't do well and you won't make that money. You need to do something that you're really passionate about, or you'll become passionate about. And if you need to be a mechanic for 3 months to do that, to learn that you love cars and you want to open a resto shop, or you want to just be a mechanic, great. If you do landscaping and you realize you just want to mow lawns the rest of your life because it makes you happy cutting those perfect lines, then you do it. And if it makes you want to go to design school and become an industrial designer, then do that. Whatever that means, figure it out and just be happy with what you do.
Do you feel like Jefferson as an institution has aided you in any way in finding these things? So we always talk about finding the passion, finding these areas. It's probably a lot easier said than done.
Oh, it is.
So what advice would you give in that realm? And then how has maybe your educational institution helped guide you or help shape some of those drives and interests?
I think for me it was really interesting because when I transferred, it was Philadelphia University. And while the opportunities were great as Philadelphia University and we had created opportunities for ourselves, when we had merged, a whole set of new opportunities had emerged. Concentrations with industrial design, medical within industrial design, going into Center City and going to the health design vault and working with all the doctors there and figuring out all these different methods of prototyping and examining products and patients and all those things that came out of Jefferson. Yes, there's hundreds of opportunities. The health hacks for the week-long design competitions, design sprints. Even if you're not a design major, they've got business meetups in Center City. You've got so much access to so many great things. And Blackstone Launchpad here has been pivotal for us. Abina was such a mentor to Adam and I starting dive design and really helping us move forward with it. Another co-founder, Ritu, who also works at Blackstone, she was an incredible mentor to us. We ran up to Boston, Forbes 30, under 30 events, and there's so many opportunities here that you need to explore and take advantage of. Read those emails. I know they can be long, and I know a lot of them come in every day, but just kind of skim through them because a lot of the opportunities lie within those emails.
I would say pay particular attention to the career services emails, but that's coming from the career services office here.
No marketing.
Well, thank you, Alex, for coming in. I really appreciate it. Once again, Alex Tholl, co-founder of Dive Design, senior industrial designer with a minor in business. I'd like to thank you again, and I wish you and your company
Thank you so much.
so much success.
Yeah, check us out, www.divedesignco.com, and thanks so much.
This has been another episode of CareerSpeak. Our theme music is composed by Spencer and Robin of Single Use Plastic, edited by Robin and Patrick. Our podcast is in collaboration with WPHU and Career Services.